Oh boy. Today we're talking about a tweet. This is what Cam Robinson posted earlier this morning, and I wanted to go out there and dive into it. 481.4 thousand people saw this tweet, and it sparked up a lot of conversation. There's some smoke out there that the New Jersey Devils are really kicking tires on Vancouver Canucks center JT Miller. And this is one of these situations where Canucks fans from all over the world are going out there and describing the same thing in the replies. Okay, it's actually not the same thing. There are a bunch of people going out there and hypothesizing what trade returns could exist in some sort of a JT Miller to New Jersey trade. And based on the replies and based off of most of Canucks fans' responses to this tweet and the conversation in general, there seem to be, let's just say, 3 names that are the most popular here. So let's dive into all of that here and more. Let's talk about the idea of a JT Miller trade to New Jersey, because we did talk about this the other day, where Nick Kiprio said that if Pettersson and Miller are both on the market, which they are, if they get moved, be on the lookout for New Jersey to be one of those destinations. And it's not necessarily, Pettersson and Miller will get traded, but honestly, with yesterday's game, I'm starting to feel like that is more of a possibility than I was initially anticipating. But regardless, the Devils could be in on both of these guys. And with Cam's tweet saying that the Devils are involved in the Miller conversation, it opens the door to even more opportunities. Now, what do the Devils need? We had been talking about this a past little while. We were talking about the idea of center depth. How they've got Hischier, they've got Jack Hughes. They're really damn good. And so, a guy like Jake Evans, for example, as a bottom 6 addition, an elite penalty killer, and a face-off winning defensive machine who can contribute some goals once in a while, would be a really good addition. But the thing is, JT Miller is not that. He's not a bottom 6 center. We already saw this in Vancouver when Elias Pettersson, Bo Horvat, and JT Miller were rotating around in the 1-2-3C positions. You can't have any of these dudes as your third-line guy. It's just too, I don't want to say like demeaning, but he's better than that. And so if JT were to be an addition in New Jersey, for me personally, like my immediate instinctual, emotional fantasy field response is like, hey, give Vancouver a Hughes, bro. Maybe Jack Hughes. Because, okay, you swap out Jack, you add in JT, that's a center for a center, it makes sense, right? But obviously, we can all acknowledge that Jack Hughes is most probably an untouchable piece for the New Jersey Devils. It's a very easy conclusion to make. But there are actually conversations in this thread here. You had Cam Robinson going out there and talking about, hey, this reply says that JT is exactly what the Devils need. Then move Hughes to the wing. They lack some jam. More likely, JT Miller to Jack Hughes' wing. A reply here says, brought Hughes, Miller, Meyer, Hischier, Palat. That's decent. And that doesn't even include some of the other guys that are very skilled and very productive on this team. I'm thinking of the Paul Cotters. I'm thinking about Dawson Mercer, who actually, his name, Dawson Mercer, he's one of the guys that is talked about a lot in the replies to this Cam Robinson tweet. It seems like a lot of Canucks fans do want him as a plug-and-play energy winger who can produce points, who doesn't really do maybe everything that you would expect out of a winger, but whose production as a 30 to 40, maybe even a 50-point guy once in a while if he's lucky, is good enough to justify keeping him in the lineup. Now, Mercer has been on the decline point production-wise from 2 seasons ago. This year he is on pace for 36 points, but Mercer still is a serviceable NHL player who happens to be only 23 years old. So obviously there would be some fuel to the fire if the Canucks were to get Mercer. However, I do feel like, just personally, if you add on a Mercer and you subtract a JT Miller, Sure, like, I think Miller is playing some of the worst hockey of his career right now, so technically it would be getting better, but I do think that the upper limit of a Dawson Mercer and what he's capable of providing, like, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy becomes like Jake DeBrusk 2.0, maybe even a tad better than that. And my question is, if the Vancouver Canucks get Mercer in exchange for Miller, long term, is that really something that improves the team? Again, I say this knowing that Miller has been terrible lately, but I'm not convinced that Mercer is the forward acquisition that makes the most sense. Now, of course, it wouldn't be Miller for Mercer 1-for-1. There would have to be some other assets involved here, which is why a lot of Canucks fans in the replies to this tweet are also talking about Simon Nemec, the guy in which we had discussed yesterday as a big part of Montreal's trade talk. Nemec spoke out in a Slovak interview about how he's disappointed that he's in the AHL and how he wants to be given more of a role, how he believes in himself and how he thinks he deserves to be in the show. He's a top 2 potential right-handed D-man who is only 20 years old, so obviously Simon Nemec has a lot of potential. The question is, though, he played 60 games with the New Jersey Devils last year. If he comes over to Vancouver, is he ready to play the remainder of the season, and how much better does he make the team? I feel like Nemec does have top 2 elite pairing potential, but the question is, how quickly does he help out the Vancouver Canucks? If he is on the top pairing with Hughes, then is he automatically a fit there? Is he able to handle those minutes if they play him in the top 4 with Susie against the toughest matchups? What does that look like? Maybe you can say that beggars cannot be choosers here, because JT Miller is a really low-valued asset compared to what his ceiling is. But for me, as a Canucks fan, it's hard to fully come to terms with that when discussing a JT trade, because anything that I envision, it's like, oh, well, Simon Nemec is not guaranteed to being fantastic. He probably is going to be fantastic, but he's not guaranteed. Dawson Mercer, he is more of a middle to top 6 caliber guy, borderline top 6 guy, and he's not really at his peak yet. Why would the Canucks trade away Miller, who is a 100-point caliber guy, for any of these assets? If it's combined, okay, you could twist my arm, maybe you'll say yes, but for me, it's like beggars can't be choosers, right? Miller is playing so poorly, so I kind of have to internally force myself to accept that Miller's trade value is low. So Miller for Nemec, for Mercer, maybe that gets it done, really. But is that the trade that I feel happy accepting? I don't know at this point. Like, obviously, if there was a trade to be done for Luke Hughes or for a Jack Hughes, I would obviously want to see the Canucks explore that route instead. Heck, when we had discussed the Pettersson-Miller trade idea the other day, somebody in the comments was like, hey, why not do Pettersson and Miller for Jack Hughes and Luke Hughes and add on whatever other prospects or picks you would need to make that trade go through? I don't care if it is the biggest overpay in the world. If it's Pettersson, Miller, plus Villander, and another first for Jack and Luke Hughes, I would absolutely 1,000,000% do that. And maybe that's because I'm not an NHL GM. I'm not the guy who's forced to make these decisions and live with the consequences if it ruins my hockey team or not. I'm not the guy whose entire city's worth of a fan base is going to go out there and clamoring that I made a mistake because I made a decision one day. I am not that guy. And if I was an NHL GM, which I'm very well not qualified to being, maybe things would change. But for now, sitting here, knowing that New Jersey apparently has an interest in both Miller and Pettersson, cough up Jack Hughes, baby. Cough up Luke Hughes. Let's see Quinn stay in Vancouver. Let's see the best defenseman this franchise has ever seen get all the ammo he needs to stay. He's the guy. It's his team. It's not Miller's team. It's not Pettersson's team. If both of these guys get traded in some sort of a big move or in multiple moves, then Quinn Hughes is going to have an entire new core to work with and tinker with. It's his team. Nobody thinks about it as anybody else's team anymore. Just imagine what he could do with Jack and Luke also on the team. A power play of all 3 of these guys. Maybe the Canucks can trade for Jack Quinn of the Buffalo Sabres and they put him on the other power play spot. Quinn Hughes, Luke Hughes, Jack Quinn, and then add on, I don't know, the other Jack Hughes, the LA prospect. There's a lot of potential here, but of course, it is all just stemmed from one basic idea that apparently JT Miller's being heavily targeted by the Devils right now. So let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Rolls 99. And Bye.